In the golden halls of the alien empire of Tarixa, nobles gathered for a grand celebration. Banners hung from the ceiling, glowing with symbols of power. Alien warriors stood tall with heavy armor, their claws shining like blades. The room smelled of spice, fire, and pride. At the center sat Princess Kalira, young, proud, beautiful, and feared across 10 star systems. Her blue skin sparkled like stars, and her long black hair flowed like night. She was known for her sharp tongue and sharper blade. No one dared challenge her, not even the warlords. That night, an important council was held. The princess would soon choose a suitor. Noble males from across the galaxy had arrived to win her favor, some with gifts, others with songs of war and conquest. She watched them all with bored eyes. Then someone unexpected walked into the hall. He wore no armor, no gold, no weapons. He was a human, thin, tired-looking, wearing a dusty engineer's uniform. His name was Jack Carter, and no one had even invited him. Gasps filled the hall. A few aliens laughed. One noble spat on the floor. "What is a human doing here?" someone shouted. Jack looked around but didn't flinch. He simply bowed politely. "I'm here to observe," he said. "Maybe to learn something. Or to entertain us," another alien chuckled. Kalira smirked. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. She leaned forward in her throne and said loud enough for all to hear, "If a human can survive the Tarixian warrior trials, I'll marry him." The hall burst into laughter. "Your Highness, you'd be safe forever then," one warrior roared. Kalira shrugged. "Just a joke. No human would survive even the first trial." Everyone laughed again, except Jack. He looked up straight into the princess's glowing eyes. "I accept," he said calmly. The room fell silent. Kalira blinked. "Excuse me?" "I accept the challenge," Jack repeated. "I'll take the trials." Someone shouted, "You'll die in the first hour." Jack shrugged. "Then you have nothing to worry about." Whispers filled the hall. Some nobles looked nervous. Others looked excited. The idea of watching a human fail, and possibly die, was perfect entertainment. Kalira narrowed her eyes. This human didn't seem scared, not even a little, and he wasn't smiling. He meant it, but why? "You know the trials are meant for trained warriors," she said. "Even some of my best people failed." "I know," Jack replied. "But I'm not here to win hearts. I'm here to survive." A general stepped forward. "Why human? Why risk your life for a joke?" Jack turned to him slowly and said, "Because I want your people to know that humans are not weak. And because I have nothing to lose." Kalira tilted her head. For the first time, her smile faded. "You really mean it," she whispered, more to herself. The Emperor, her father, stood up at last. His deep voice echoed across the room. "If the human volunteers, we must honor the old law. Any who accepts the royal challenge must be given the trials." He turned to Jack. "From this moment, your life belongs to the Empire. If you pass the trials, you earn your reward. If you fail, no one will remember your name." Jack nodded. Kalira leaned back in her seat. This was supposed to be a joke, a way to make fun of humans, but now it was real. The image of this quiet, tired man standing strong among the galaxy's deadliest beings burned into her mind. She didn't know whether to feel annoyed or curious. That night, the news spread like wildfire through every system. A human had accepted the Tarixian royal trials. Some called him brave, others called him mad. Many placed bets. No one believed he would last even one day. But in his small guest room at the palace, Jack sat by the window looking at the stars. He held a worn photo in his hand. A little girl smiling, wearing a hospital gown, his little sister. "I promised I'd come back rich, Maya," he whispered. "Looks like I'm starting with a joke." Outside, alien guards whispered among themselves. "Dead by morning," one said. "Stupid human," said another. But inside, Jack didn't feel fear, just calm, because he knew something they didn't. He had faced harder things than monsters. He had already survived the worst trial on Earth: poverty, loss, and a life where no one believed in him. Tomorrow, he would face fire, but tonight, he smiled. The next morning, the sky over Tarixa turned red. It wasn't because of war or danger. It was tradition. Every time the trials began, the Empire filled the skies with red smoke, so all could witness the beginning of a new challenge. And today, a human would enter. Princess Kalira stood on a high balcony, wearing a long robe of silver and blue. Her face showed no emotion, but her sharp eyes never left the trial gate below. Jack Carter stood there, alone. No armor, no weapons, just a suit made of flame-resistant material and a small toolkit on his belt. The first trial was known as the Run Through Fire and Stone, a giant lava field called the Path of Varnak, filled with falling rocks, rising flames, and molten rivers. Even alien soldiers had perished here. The goal was simple: survive 10 kilometers and reach the signal beacon at the end. A loud horn sounded. Jack took a breath and ran into the smoke. The ground beneath him cracked and burned. Lava bubbles popped near his feet. Rocks fell from above, heated until they glowed orange. Alien viewers gasped as a giant boulder crashed just inches from Jack. Kalira watched with arms crossed. "He won't make it to the halfway mark," she whispered to herself. But Jack wasn't just running. He was reading the environment. He noticed patterns, how the lava burst in certain spots, how the rocks followed timing like a broken machine. He adjusted his steps, calculated his pauses. He wasn't the fastest, but he was precise. Halfway through the path, a monster emerged from the smoke. It was called a fire raptor, a creature born in the heat of the lava caves. Covered in red scales, eyes like burning coal, it let out a scream that shook the stone walls. The crowd cheered, expecting Jack to turn and run, but he didn't. He backed up slowly, grabbed a metal rod from his belt and waved it. The raptor moved forward. Jack saw it limping, its back leg injured, maybe from earlier traps. He didn't try to fight. He did something strange. He threw a heat pack toward the lava. The raptor looked at the sizzling pack, then back at Jack. Then, it turned away. It left him alone. On the balcony, Kalira's eyes widened. "He let it go," a nearby noble muttered. "That wasn't bravery. That was weakness." "No," she said quietly. "That was something else." The final stretch was the most dangerous. A narrow bridge of volcanic stone that shook with every step. Beneath it, boiling lava. Above it, sharp rocks falling at random. Jack started walking, but then a tremor hit. The bridge cracked. He dropped to his knees, holding on. Suddenly, a sharp rock fell from above. It grazed his shoulder, cutting deep. Blood soaked his sleeve. He gritted his teeth and crawled. 1 inch at a time. Aliens watching on giant screens leaned forward. "Even the Emperor stood," Kalira whispered. "Fall and it's over." But if he reaches it... Another rock fell, this time hitting the bridge itself. It cracked again. Jack made a decision. He jumped, using the last of his strength. He dove off the bridge, straight toward the final platform. The audience gasped. He hit the ground hard. Rolled. Didn't move. Then, slowly, he raised one arm and pressed the beacon. Trial 1. Complete. The horns sounded again, this time louder, echoing across cities. The guards rushed in to carry Jack out. His suit was burned, his arm bleeding, but his eyes were still open. In the medical tent, Kalira entered quietly. No one saw her come in. She stood beside his bed. Jack was half-conscious, breathing slowly. "You're a fool," she whispered. He opened one eye and smirked. "That's what they all say." Kalira crossed her arms. "Why didn't you kill the fire raptor?" "It wasn't angry. It was scared," Jack said softly. "Just like most people." She stared at him. This human didn't fight like a soldier. He thought like a survivor. He acted with logic, but also with heart. She left without saying another word. Outside, nobles argued. He cheated somehow. "No one cheats death. The next trial will break him." But deep inside, a small voice in Kalira's heart whispered something new. What if he wins? And for the first time, the joke didn't feel so funny anymore. 3 days passed. Jack's burns had started to heal, but the bruises on his body were nothing compared to the whispers outside his room. Everywhere he walked, aliens stared. Some laughed. Some looked at him with curiosity. A few with respect. But most still believed he would die in the next trial. The third challenge was called the Breath of Selthar. It was held in the wild jungles of the planet Selthar, where no technology worked properly, and even the air could not be trusted. The jungle was full of creatures with toxic blood, plants that whispered false memories, and winds that carried strange poisons into the lungs. Only 2 people had ever completed the trial. Both lost their minds. Afterward, Jack was given one tool only, a breathing mask with limited filters, and told to find a crystal hidden deep in the jungle. The crystal was small, glowing blue, and hidden near a creature's nest known as the Mist Howler. The trial began at dawn. The jungle was hot, wet, full of sounds that didn't belong, clicks, growls, and laughter. Even though Jack walked alone, he moved carefully, marking trees with a small blade. He noticed how the plants seemed to shift when he wasn't looking. The vines pulsed like veins, leaves opened like eyes, but Jack wasn't afraid. He'd grown up in abandoned buildings back on Earth. Mold, gas leaks, broken machines. He had learned early how to survive where others panicked. His mask beeped, filter at 30%. He had to hurry. Then came the voices. Jack, help me. He stopped. A girl's voice echoed through the trees. It sounded like his sister. He turned, but no one was there. The trees swayed slowly, as if laughing at him. He shook his head and kept moving. Far away, Kalira watched through a drone camera. She saw Jack pause, then move again. She leaned closer. Her fingers were pressed together tightly. Don't follow the voice, she whispered. She didn't know why she was whispering. She didn't know why she was worried. Suddenly, Jack dropped to one knee. His breathing became slow. His hands shook. He pulled off his mask and checked the filter. Clogged. Too much poison in the air. The mask was dying and he still hadn't found the crystal. Jack looked around. Then he did something no one expected. He found a large glowing plant. Its surface was sticky, but the inside looked dry. He carefully cut a piece and wrapped it around his mask filter, sealing it like a natural sponge. He put the mask back on. It hissed. Then, clear air. Kalira blinked in shock. He used jungle material to clean the air? One of her guards said. No one has ever tried that before. She smiled just a little. Because no one thinks like him, Jack kept going. His steps slow but sure. Finally, after 2 more hours, he found the mist howler's nest. The creature was asleep. It looked like a giant gray wolf with 6 eyes and gills on its back. Toxic fog came from its mouth as it breathed. The crystal was near its tail. Jack didn't pull a weapon. He didn't attack. Instead, he took a stick and rubbed it and crushed berries nearby. Then he tossed the stick far into the trees. The mist howler twitched, then followed the scent. Gone. Jack ran forward, grabbed the crystal, and ran back into the fog. He made it to the signal beacon in time and collapsed. The trial was over. Everyone, watching the live broadcast, fell silent. He did it. Again. The Empire's warriors were confused. The nobles were speechless. Kalira stared at the screen, heart pounding. What is he? She whispered. Later, in the palace infirmary, Jack woke up with the crystal beside his bed. Kalira visited again. This time, she didn't hide. She stood beside him and said, You didn't fight the beast. You tricked it. Jack smiled weakly. You said survive. Not kill. She tilted her head. You could have made it easier by using more tools. Asked for a better mask. Jack looked at her with tired eyes. Life doesn't give second masks where I come from. Kalira didn't know what to say. This human was teaching her something about strength that didn't come from claws or swords, a different kind of power. Before she left, she turned and asked, Why keep going? You're already proving something, Jack replied. I'm not here to prove anything anymore. Then what? I'm here to win. Kalira didn't laugh this time. For the first time, she believed he just might. The 4th trial was not about fire, poison, or monsters. It was about the mind. It was the trial that broke warriors without touching them. Some returned screaming. Some never returned at all. The Empire called it the Dream Maze, and only those who could face their deepest fears made it out. Princess Kalira stood in silence outside the trial tower. She had stopped laughing days ago. Each time Jack survived, her heart felt heavier. And strangely, warmer. Jack stood in front of the entrance, still bruised, still recovering. His skin was pale and his steps slower, but his eyes remained sharp. The Empire's High Seer explained the rules. The maze reads your thoughts, your memories, your pain, the Seer said. You will face things no one else can see. If you break, you will never leave. Jack nodded once. Let's begin. The metal doors opened. He stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, the world changed. He was no longer in a maze. He was on Earth, but not the Earth of now. It was raining. A broken street. A little girl sat in the corner, coughing, holding a tiny blanket. His sister? Maya? Jack whispered. She looked up. Her eyes were full of tears. Jack, you left me, she said softly. No, I didn't. I came back. Jack reached for her, but she vanished into mist. The rain stopped. Now he stood in a bright white room. Doctors were shouting. Machines beeped wildly. He stood over Maya's hospital bed. Her chest was still. Time of death, 3:47 a.m. Jack fell to his knees. No, this isn't real. But it felt real. The pain was real. Then, everything turned black. A new voice echoed through the darkness. Why do you keep fighting, human? You think you matter? Out of the shadows came a twisted version of Jack himself. It smiled cruelly. You're not strong. You're desperate. Jack looked at the copy. Maybe it was right. Maybe he had no right to be here. He had no training, no soldiers, no armor. But then, he remembered something. The day Maya had whispered from her hospital bed. Don't give up. You always fix broken things. Jack slowly stood up. I'm still here, he said. The shadow Jack laughed. But you're alone. Jack shook his head. No, I have her memory. And I have a reason. He walked forward. The shadow tried to grab him but turned into smoke. The hospital room disappeared. The street vanished. Suddenly, he stood in a hallway made of mirrors. Each mirror showed a different version of himself. One was rich. One was dead. One was smiling. One was crying. He walked past them all until he reached a door with no handle. The final test. A voice whispered, Only truth opens the door. Jack closed his eyes and said softly, I'm scared. The door clicked, it opened. Light poured in outside the maze. Kalira waited. The guards began whispering. Too long. Maybe he's lost. He survived 3 trials. Maybe his luck ran out. Kalira didn't speak. Then, the tower doors opened and Jack walked out. His eyes were red. His legs shook, but he walked, straight. The High Seer looked stunned. How did you escape your fear so quickly? Jack gave a tired smile. I didn't escape. I walked through it. Kalira stepped forward. This time she didn't hide her curiosity. What did you see in there? She asked. Things that hurt, Jack replied, but also things that matter. He looked at her and added, Even pain can guide you if you don't run from it. Kalira didn't respond. She looked at him for a long time. Finally, she said, You're not like the others. I've noticed, Jack said, half laughing. That night, across the Empire, everyone talked about the human who walked through nightmares and came out stronger. Some said he used tricks. Others said he was lucky. But Kalira, she knew the truth. This human was surviving not with strength, but with something far more dangerous, purpose. The Empire's arenas were silent that morning. Usually, trial days brought music, noise, and excitement. But not today, because Jack Carter, the human, had passed 3 trials that no outsider ever had. Now everyone was watching carefully, not just out of curiosity, but fear. What if he actually survived them all? What if the princess had to keep her word? In a dark chamber deep beneath the palace, a group of high-ranking nobles gathered. Angry, nervous, embarrassed. This cannot continue, one hissed. The trials were never meant for humans. If he wins the final 2, the princess will be bound by law. An old general slammed his fist on the table. We end it now, quietly. He won't survive the next trial. If we make a small adjustment, they all agreed. No one would ever know. Jack sat in his quiet room staring at the bandages on his arm. His body ached with every movement, but his mind was calm. He had learned to ignore pain. To him, pain meant he was still alive. Princess Kalira entered without knocking. She rarely knocked now. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. The next trial is supposed to test your reflexes, she said. A virtual combat sim. You'll face a digital monster in an arena. Jack nodded. That sounds fair. She watched him carefully. I don't trust it, she whispered. Too convenient, Jack smiled weakly. You think someone's changing the rules? Kalira didn't answer, but her silence said enough. Later that day, Jack entered the simulation chamber. It was cold and white, glowing with alien tech. He stood in the center, waiting. Around him, a ring of officials sat in chairs, watching through holographic screens. One of them wore a smug smile. The trial commander. The lights dimmed. The simulation began before Jack. A beast formed, 8 feet tall, glowing red skin, giant claws. But something was wrong. The hologram shouldn't have weight. But when the beast walked, the floor shook. Jack blinked. It wasn't a hologram. It was real. The trial commander leaned toward his screen and whispered, "Goodbye, human." The beast roared and charged. Jack dodged just in time. Diving behind a platform, claws tore through metal. They activated a real monster protocol, Jack muttered. No safety code. He was trapped in a kill box, no weapons, no exit, and no help. High above in the royal chamber, Kalira watched the live feed. She jumped to her feet. "That's not a simulation." Her father, the emperor, frowned. "What are you saying?" "They sent a real beast in there," she shouted. "That's not part of the trial." The emperor narrowed his eyes. Impossible. No one would dare. Kalira didn't wait. She ran. Inside the chamber, Jack rolled under a collapsing column. He grabbed a broken pipe, sharp on one end. The monster lunged. Jack jabbed the pipe into its side. It roared but didn't fall. Too strong, too fast, but not too smart. Jack looked at the glowing panels across the walls, control systems. If he could reach one, he sprinted, dodging another claw strike. He slid across the floor, sparks flying from his boots, and slammed his hand into the panel. It buzzed. He pressed a series of buttons rapidly. The beast charged again. Clang! The floor dropped from under the beast. Jack had activated the maintenance trapdoor. The monster fell into a lower shaft, straight into containment. The gate slammed shut. Silence. Jack collapsed to the floor, breathing hard, blood on his lip. He looked up at the dark ceiling. "Nice try," he whispered. The door burst open. Kalira rushed in with 2 royal guards. She saw Jack lying there, bleeding, barely moving, and she saw the shut panel, the trapdoor still locked. She turned to the guards. "Seal this room. No one leaves. Arrest the trial commander immediately." The guards nodded and left. Kalira knelt beside Jack. "You were supposed to fight a fake enemy," she said softly. "I figured that out," he replied, coughing. She looked into his eyes. "You shouldn't be alive," he smiled. "That's starting to sound familiar." Kalira didn't smile back. Her face was hard, serious. This wasn't just a test. It was sabotage. Someone tried to murder you. Jack wiped the blood from his chin. "Good to know I'm finally important." Kalira stood. "You are. To more people than you realize." As she turned to leave, Jack called out, "Why do you care now?" She paused. Her voice was quiet. "Because you keep surviving, even when you're not supposed to." That night, the Empire shook. News spread fast. A human had beaten a trial that wasn't a trial. And now, everyone wanted to know, what will he face next? Because the next trial wasn't just ancient, it was forbidden, and no one had attempted it in 200 years until now. Storm clouds gathered above the floating arena known as the Shard of Raltor. It hovered above a violent gas giant held in place by ancient alien tech. The winds around it howled like angry spirits, and lightning danced across the clouds like silver snakes. No one had attempted this trial in 2 centuries. Why? Because the last warrior to enter never returned. Now a human was about to try. Jack Carter stood at the edge of the floating platform, wearing a suit reinforced with insulation. The platform shook under his boots as the storm below roared louder. In the skybox above, Princess Kalira watched with clenched fists. "This isn't a trial," she said quietly. "It's a graveyard." Even the Emperor, her father, sat silently, eyes fixed on the platform. This was the final trial. Trial 5. The heart of the storm. There would be no monsters, no poison, no illusions, only nature itself, and a test of survival. Jack had 30 minutes. He had to reach the far end of the arena and activate a power cord damaged long ago by lightning. He couldn't fly. The winds would tear any craft apart. He had to walk across a broken path made of metal, wires, and stone. And the lightning? It had a mind of its own. When the countdown began, Jack moved. Every step was a battle. The wind slammed into his body like a wall. The rain was so sharp it felt like needles on his faceplate. His boots slipped on the wet metal. One wrong step and he'd fall into the endless storm below. The spectators held their breath. He wasn't even halfway when the first bolt hit. It struck 10 meters away. Blowing up part of the bridge, Jack flew backward, hit the ground hard and rolled. His suit sparked. His shoulder was dislocated. He screamed, but got back up. "Keep moving," he muttered. "Just keep moving." Kalira leaned forward, whispering, "Don't stop." She didn't care who was watching. She didn't care what the nobles thought. All she could see was him, a broken, bleeding human. Standing against the sky, Jack reached the broken section. The metal path was gone. Only sparking wires and a long drop remained. He looked around. No tools, no ropes. Then he saw it. An anchor post, half melted, sticking out of the platform. He pulled off his belt, wrapped it around the anchor, and jumped. The wind almost tore him away. He swung hard and hit the other side of the platform, his ribs slamming against the edge. He didn't cry out. He didn't stop. He climbed. Now he was close, only a few meters from the core, but it was surrounded by exposed lightning rods. The next strike would likely hit it, and anyone nearby. He had no time. Jack opened his suit's back panel and ripped out the energy converter. He slid it into the power core's port. It didn't fit. He took his blade and carved the metal to size, hands shaking, rain blinding him. He was still working when the lightning lit the sky. Again, the charge built up. The static in the air grew thick. 1 second. 2. Jack slammed the converter in. Click. Boom. Lightning struck. The storm exploded. White light covered the sky. The arena shook. Then, silence. The storm stopped. For the first time in 200 years, it ended. The clouds parted. The wind calmed. The arena's power core pulsed blue. Jack lay still beside it, smoke rising from his back. His body didn't move. Kalira stood. "Medical team, now!" she shouted. Guards rushed toward transport ships. Even the Emperor rose, his voice soft. "Is he—" Before he could finish, a weak voice echoed through the arena. "I'm not dead." Jack raised a hand and gave a thumbs up. The entire crowd gasped. Kalira covered her mouth, eyes wide. The Emperor looked at the screen and whispered, "He completed all 5. Hours later, Jack lay in the medical chamber. His body was badly burned. He had cracked ribs, torn muscles, but he was awake. Kalira entered again. This time, she didn't wear her royal robes. She looked like just a person, someone real. "You won," she said quietly. "I survived," Jack replied. "Same thing." She walked to his side. "You remember the joke I made?" she asked. "About marrying you if you passed?" He smirked. "Hard to forget." "Well," she said, "you passed." Jack's smile faded. "You don't have to keep that promise." "I know," she said. "But maybe I want to." They looked at each other. Something passed between them. Not duty, not law, just understanding. The Empire had never seen a story like his, and now it was time for the world to witness the final choice. Because what came next would change history. The Empire had not seen a wedding in 1,000 years, not like this, not between a royal alien princess and a human. The grand halls of the Celestial Palace were lit with blue fire and floating crystals. Alien nobles from every star system arrived. Soldiers stood in rows, their armor shining. Giant screens floated in the sky, broadcasting the event to millions. But not everyone was happy. Some nobles whispered behind masks. "Why him? A human, our future prince? He's not one of us." Princess Kalira heard every word. She didn't care. She stood tall in her ceremonial gown, woven from starlight silk with armor at her shoulders. Her eyes scanned the room. She wasn't just a royal, she was a warrior, and now she was keeping a promise. Jack Carter stood in the garden before the ceremony, fixing his cuffs. His arm was still bandaged. His side still ached, but he was standing, alive. He didn't care about crowns, titles, or thrones. He cared about one thing, that she had meant it. He had survived every trial. He had seen fire, poison, illusions, and lightning. He had faced beasts and sabotage, but now he was facing something even stranger, a future, one he had never imagined. He looked up at the twin sons of Tyrixa and smiled. "You watching, Maya?" he whispered. "Your brother's about to do something crazy." Again. Kalira entered the garden, quietly. Jack turned and saw her. They just looked at each other for a moment, no words. Then she stepped closer. "I'm not marrying you because of the joke," she said. "I know," Jack replied. "You're doing it because you lost a bet." She laughed for the first time in days. "I'm doing it because no one else ever stood beside me without bowing." Jack tilted his head. "I think you're forgetting how much I bled for this." She smiled again. "You bled. You survived. And you changed the Empire." The ceremony began. An ancient alien priest stood at the center, holding a scroll that hadn't been opened in centuries. Jack stood beside Kalira. The crowd was silent. The priest read the ancient words. "By the law of Tarixa, by the trials of soul and strength, two beings stand as one." He looked at Kalira. "Do you accept this human as your equal, your chosen, your future?" Kalira's voice was clear and strong. "I do." He turned to Jack. "Do you accept this bond, not of power, but of choice?" Jack looked at Kalira. "I do." The priest raised the scroll high. "Then it is done." The crowd didn't cheer at first. It was too shocking, too unbelievable. Then, slowly, an applause began. It grew louder and louder until the palace echoed with claps and cheers and music. The Empire had just changed. A human was now part of the royal bloodline, and no one could undo it. Later that night, Kalira and Jack stood on the palace balcony, looking out at the stars. "You could leave, you know," she said. "Now that it's over." Jack shook his head. "I came to prove something, but now, I want to build something." She raised an eyebrow. "With me?" "With you," he said. "And with whoever still believes that we can be better." Kalira was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, "I think I believe it now." Jack looked at her. "Do you think your people will ever accept me?" She nodded. "Not all at once. But over time, maybe." "I'm good with that," Jack replied. "I've always worked with broken things." Kalira laughed. Elsewhere, in hidden rooms and dark corners, angry nobles plotted. "He must be watched," one hissed. "She's becoming too close to him. We may need to act soon." But what they didn't understand was that Jack wasn't alone anymore. He had the people watching him now. The Empire was inspired. The story of the human who survived every trial had spread across the stars. Songs were already being written. Children pretended to be him in the streets. And the princess who once joked about a human suitor, she now walked proudly at his side. In the royal chambers, Kalira placed something in Jack's hand, a small silver ring, carved with alien runes and earth symbols combined. Jack looked at her. "This wasn't part of the ceremony." "I know," she said. "This part is just from me." He slipped it on. It glowed softly. "Looks like it fits," he said. Kalira smiled. "It was made for you." And for once in his life, Jack didn't feel like an outsider. He felt like he belonged, not because he won something, but because someone truly saw him and chose him, not as a joke, but as a partner.